Hello. In this video, I'll explain every single move and idea that I do and introduce puzzle-solving rules in order to teach you how to solve Puzzle Rush as a tool to rapidly improve your calculation abilities. Not only that, I will teach you how to choose the best move in any position by understanding and applying imbalances and general principles. You'll get a lot of practice in this video using this method, so be prepared to learn a lot today. You can grab a piece of paper and write all this down to help you if you like. We're just going to jump into the puzzles right away now. Thanks for giving me your time. Now let's put it to good use and begin. Basically, it's just calculate as much as you can, consider every single move before giving up, and then spend as much time as you need. But for this video, I'm not going to take too long. But definitely going to look at every single move, which I haven't been doing recently. I've only got to like 32 in this series. I need to get to 40. Even if I make a mistake or two, 40 would be pretty cool. But ideally, 40 no mistakes. My height is 57, so I've done a lot of these. This is just going to be mate in 1. Check here. Blocked by the rook. And then, so the bishop defends that square, so it's mate in 2. Like I said, I'm going to explain every single move. So, rook takes, check. So the forcing moves is most of what we're going to be looking at. Checks, captures threats. And then the higher level puzzles would be improving moves based off imbalances. And then you also want to just look at legal moves in case, especially in games. But checks, captures threats. First check I see. It's going to be backmaking mate after knight blocks. Rook takes. Mate in 1. So they're mate in 1 because these two squares are covered by this pawn. Mate in 2. Since these two squares are covered by the rook, king can't escape. So the rook has to block and then rook's captured. Looks like we're in check, but we can actually just take the queen. Fortunate. Ooh. So this square is covered by the knight, and if the queen went there, it would be mate, because king is in check and can't go anywhere. And they can't take because it would be putting itself in check with a knight. So this pawn, again, is defended by this pawn. So the queen can take this, and it's mate. I'm in check. So actually, we just have to take this free queen. Nothing else defends this queen. Okay, so we can take this, defended by the knight, take with queen. This is forced. But then, I don't know, knight takes, but then pawn takes. Maybe we, oh wait, take the bishop and it's mate, right? King over, and the queen takes bishop, and then this escape square right here is covered. And then it's also check, and that escape square, of course. Mate in 2. Nice, this is called a smothered mate, because the knight delivers check, and the king is just smothered by its own pieces, so there's no escape squares, and nothing can take the knight on the square. So this is a check that we have available. Actually, this one too, which definitely is better. Because if we went to this square, then rook would block, but king would have this escape square, so we gotta think, how do we prevent the king from escaping here? Well, we're gonna need the queen to be close by to that, because that's the only way we can attack that light square diagonal. So, once the queen takes this pawn, defended by the rook, then this is forced, either one of these two moves, either way. Queen takes this pawn, because that's defended by the bishop. So mate in 2. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, I'm looking at this move at first. Say, that's a check. Say bishop takes, queen takes, rook blocks, but then queen takes, because this bishop here also defends that square. That's got to be the move. Say for some reason, yeah, they can't even go up, because the bishop blocks that. And then if they went up, then we're just winning a rook, maybe? Or the block with bishop, we win the bishop. Because we got a discover check. When the king is here and the rook is here, move the rook away, then this diagonal is open. So the queen gives check to the king. But yeah, this is going to be a rook here, check, bishop takes, queen takes, rook blocks, and then queen takes, defended by bishop. like this, we got a capture that's also a discovered check. Because this opens this file and it's check because the queen. And then I think what's going to happen is we go like a ladder mate style. No, because the rook defends this, the queen defends this, so we can't really. I was thinking to get our queen there, then get our king, rook, putting the king check. But actually, once this pawn is here, it will be attacking this square, so we can simply put our queen on that square, and its mate once again, defended by the pawn. King can't move. Amazing. So discovered check, right? Queen's got this diagonal there. So what would the king's moves, possible moves be? Check there. Covered by the queen. You can't block because it's double check. So that's the best move in chess, basically, is double check because it forces the king to move somewhere. So if they go up, we take this pawn with the knight, and it forks the rook and the king. That's not terrible. I don't think there's anything better. No, because the queen, every other pieces kind of defend the king well. So if up, we fork the king and the rook. If down, then we still fork the king and the rook. Because the king will be here. Either king here, rook here, knight here, forks. Or king here, rook here, knight here, forks. I don't know. I feel like you always got to make sure that it's not wrong. We don't have to consider every legal move because we're not stuck yet. This is just the the most obvious forcing move, and it seems to work. We've tried everything. It's a double check, so yeah, it's safe. And then we just fork. In games, it can be tough sometimes. But this one seems straightforward because you always want to move your king and activate your king in the end games, especially if you can prevent the opponent's king from coming close to the important pieces. So say king here. But this pawn, king will be able to defend this pawn. The king can't go there, but yeah, I'll go here with the king and take that. And if they defend that, then I'll just capture that pawn and push this forward. So yeah, this is the move. This is impossible. So fortunately, we have one obvious move. Love it. We'll just capture this pawn and promote it. We don't have time to capture all of our pawns. And now you always want to get your king to like this square right here, because you want to prevent this king from blocking the promotion square. So we go diagonally this way. But I think that's like the only move in the position, but just in general, it's something you need to know. Amazing, doing good so far. Tricky. I'm looking at this check, but then pawn takes, rook takes, the king escapes. I always gotta look for sacrifices. Okay, so we got another rook and king fork. And we don't really need to look at every legal move because there's only like all the other checks just don't work. Like here. What about knight here? Nope, two pawns. We're just gonna fork the king and the rook. Perfect. White to move. So I think we can go here with check, and this is called a skewer, because the more valuable piece has to vacate the path. In this case a rank, in order to open up the attack to a less valuable, or well, it is a less valuable piece, yeah. And generally, like right, because the king is more valuable because it's if you checkmate the king, the game's over. But we're gonna win the queen. It's basically that's all you need to know because it's check, and the king will have to move to this rank, and then we pick up the queen. It's undefended. Is there anything better though? Actually, no, because the rook controls this rank. Yeah. Okay. So we can take this knight with a pawn, take some material, or we can get checkmate too. Because note this pawn, note this bishop, note all of your pieces and how they coordinate. This is I recognize this because it's like a tactic. You just do a bunch of tactics and you just recognize the patterns over time, right? But since this pawn is pinned to the king by the bishop cannot take this pawn if we were to capture it with our queen. So we can do that. This is forced, and then queen captures pawn, mate in 2, check, king escapes, but then queen captures, g2, checkmate. Again, we got this bishop, kind of hard to see sometimes, all the way at the corner, but simply just go to this square in the corner, because it's mate, if you put the queen there. And do not go here, because the rook will take. So, mate in 1. Looks like we got another mate in 1. You always want to check the escape squares for the king if you think you're about to get mate. And then, so that rank is blocked off. So rook check, rook sacrifices, and then checkmate, mate 2. So this pawn is defended by this pawn, but the bishop also defends it. So do not take with queen. Okay, wait. So this is a double check once again, because the pawn attacks diagonally, and this rook will be able to attack the king once the file opens up. So this is probably the best move, without a doubt. I think that's actually mate in 1. No, because king, yeah, because this pawn attacks this square. So queen covers this pawn covers that. And then be checked, defended by the queen, and then these two will also be covered by the rook. So beautiful mate in 1. Again, usually this works, but not this time because of the bishop. But I think we could probably get a back rank mate simply. Yep. Queen will be forced to block, bishop will be forced to block, but it's delaying the inevitable. So it's going to be mate in 3 because king cannot escape. And just any check by a rook or a queen on the back rank is mate if it can't be blocked. And yeah. Oh, nice. I didn't see that. That's what the computer decides to do. You can do the bishop sacrifice first, but there's really no point because you're losing anyway. But I guess it's forced because you don't, unless you just resign. Mate in 2. Oh, actually, don't do that because the queen defends that bishop. So you gotta be careful for stuff like that. But it could be a mate in 2 in a different way. Queen takes. Rook, king goes to the corner, forced. I don't know, just like trade rooks. Oh, that does work because the queen. If there's a queen here, that means check, and this is blocked, and this is escape square is blocked, right? That's a nice pattern. Since there's this white pawn here blocking the king in, queen here and the king here will be mate. So after we go here, king goes here. Rook e1 check. Rook captures e1, and then queen captures e1. Bishop to f1 blocks, but then queen captures f1 mate. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, mate in 4. So we got this check here, it's obvious, but the queen will take that. That probably doesn't work. I guess we could also just take the queen, couldn't we now? And so bishop will take our queen if we take theirs. I wonder, do we take rook first or do we take queen first then rook? Because if we take this rook, we're threatening to take the second rook with check. You know, 2 rooks is better than a queen. But then if they take our queen with their bishop, it will be check for us though. So how do we avoid losing this rook, right? If we take this queen, they take this with check. But when we recapture with the king, it does defend the rook. Sometimes you want to recapture with the knight if it's like a opening puzzle where there's like bishops and knights in the center. Sometimes you have to recapture with the knight or just like trade off pieces in a certain way. But yeah, I think we just take the queen and then we win the bishop because they're forced to take our queen. We capture back, and we're also attacking the knight, which is awesome. So instead of that losing scenario, they decide to take our rook instead of a. That's odd. But then we can take the rook with our queen. So the queen is pinned to the king by this bishop. So they're still going to they're going to trade rooks, which is odd. And they're still going to lose a bishop, I believe. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. approaching difficult territory almost. Mm, 'cause this one doesn't look like it's obvious, but if we need to consider every legal move, we will, and it shouldn't take much longer than like 60 seconds. And then we can also consider imbalances if we get really stuck, and just like, yeah, how those will affect our plans. Um, but I think this is the side of the board we play on because, right, the king side, because the opponent's king is there, and I don't know, checkmate's a common like goal of puzzles. So I don't know. I'm seeing this move just attack the queen. They can just go back. Don't like this. So this is covered by the bishop. That'll be covered by. This is all covered by the pawn. So this is forced. That should be good for us for some reason, right? That we can force the queen to move. Because forcing moves are usually best. But then just how do we attack the queen though again? Or what do we gain from this? It's like the knight would be the obvious piece to move. Or if not the knight, this bishop, because those two have space. They have more space than the other pieces. These bishop and queen are locked in behind the pawns. The pawns are the fence. They like define your territory, right? So here and here. Here pawn takes, but that attacks the queen, but the pawn just takes. I see. Maybe we trap the bishop. There we go. It's not too bad. As long as you recognize the first move, you can probably recognize the second move and all of the moves you need. So just assume this was correct, but before playing, visualize what happens. Since we can't attack the queen anymore, there's no checks or captures. We have to look at threats. We can't threaten the queen, which is the strongest type of threat usually. So we can threaten a minor piece. Because if we push this pawn forward, it will attack this bishop, defended by our bishop. And that bishop is trapped because these three squares are blocked in by their own piece. So, okay, so again, we see our opponent deviating. Well, not deviating. I just didn't calculate a move further than I should have. Now they're just move their knight to attack our bishop. And we shouldn't be really afraid to recapture that with our pawn, right? So we take this pawn, they take our bishop, we take back. So we gain a minor piece and we lose a pawn. And we trade some minor pieces. Still can't attack the queen. Yeah, I think we just have to take the minor piece. Yep. You have to recapture the pawn, so it's like compensation. We'll be up 2 points of material from that, but we'll have this weird pawn. It's a weak because it can't be defended by other pawns. So they get their queen here and they attack that pawn. It's going to be very hard to defend because the only thing they could defend it is the queen or maybe the king, but that'd be very bad. Or the rook. And you don't want to waste your rook just defending like that. Okay, so this check, pawn blocks, I'm sorry. The knight takes, attacks this rook, so pawn will take, and then we take the rook with queen. This is a common puzzle. Because if they don't take the knight with the pawn, then we're going to have discovered check. We're just going to, yeah, maybe they'll move the rook, but if they do that, not quite threatening mate if they move the rook here, but moving the knight will be give a check along this diagonal with the queen. Yeah, just like I said. Sometimes it differs a little bit. So bishop takes this. They could just go here. We gotta note that. But if they take knight here, check. They could attack our knight. Queen wouldn't be possible. But we have to move the knight before the queen because the knight is in the way of the diagonal. Oh wait, we got this pawn push to give it check on this light square. So you gotta note that. Note all of your pieces and what they can do. Even if they're not even don't seem to be developed in the attack, like the bishop and the knight. So they can check, take. What's the point though? I don't know that pawn move actually helps much. So I could do a rook lift. Knight check. Yeah, they can go back because then queen out and then queen here is mate. So they're gonna have to try to go forward to prevent our queen from going to the square. Check, takes, check, attacks. This might not be terrible. It's moving the rook. Like what could they do? They sacrifice the queen for the knight. Say they just move the bishop or something. Well then rook here check. This is covered by that bishop. This is covered by the pawn. I mean, but the knight is on that square. The king will be here. No. Ah, I see. The king can't actually move there. Check. Yeah, the king will be here. So these two escape squares will be covered. The rook will be here. That's mate. 1, 2, 3. Some random move, and then 4. Maybe we shouldn't consider it a random move. Maybe we consider it a pawn move. But once we move our rook out, then we can move our queen out. That's just going to be devastating. We're going to totally be fine there. But then just like, what if this? Well, we can still move the knight out, and then we can move the queen out still, and we'll get some sort of attack. Amazing. So they just went back with the king. Interesting. Pretty sure my variation worked too to get mate. But yeah, this is obvious mate, because queen here, then queen here. Undefendable. Oh, what the freak? That was a misclick. That's so annoying. I thought I was putting the queen back to the square it came from. But I was saying the knight could actually go here and defend that square. The knight can go here after queen here, but then pawn takes. That's what happens probably. Yeah, so the puzzle doesn't go on because of that. So that's stupid. It doesn't count as a loss in my books. I have a list of all the puzzles that I lose on Puzzle Rush on Elite Chess Study to improve pattern recognition, spaced repetition, repeating the same puzzles over and over. So we'll go over that after this game. But this is mate 2. Oh, it's a knight there. Oh my gosh. This is what happens to me. Now I've already lost 2 puzzles. I've only got to 26. Just gotta take your time. It's the biggest thing with puzzles. We can still figure this out. We can we've got a bishop that covers this area. So yeah, maybe bishop first. That's definitely the move. Because this is impossible. If here it's just a discovered attack. But that's not good enough if we just go back and forth. The idea is knight takes bishop, queen takes knight, and then we get our mate, we try to do. So if here, maybe we go here with the bishop, king here, bishop takes f2 check. Yeah, and that's defended by the knight, so that wins. Bishop and, but yeah, there's knight takes, mate in 3 in total. Yeah, that's not hard. The other one was a misclick, as I already showed, but then knight goes here, pawn takes, because they're defending this. So we can't actually take this rook because we'll be in the square of the pawn, right? It's 4x4 square. As long as the king is in that 3x3 square, then it can get here in time, the promotion square. Because it's 3 squares on this file and also 3 squares on the diagonal. So in the square, 2, 2, 1, 1. Oh wait, this one promotes, but then rook takes. Yeah, this is just fine. Most of the time, the game puzzles are easy, but they can get a little harder. But generally, they're easy compared to other tactical puzzles in the middle game. So, this is most likely going to be it. Well, think, yeah. Or no, why don't we just not just take this knight, pawn recaptures, and we win a bishop? It's called removing the defender. Say this and then this. That's a problem. I mean, I guess we just take this pawn then, and then rook a pawn. Another pawn. We have to move their bishop, waste a tempo, because our king defends the square. So that's still good, even though we're not quite winning a piece, I don't think. Yep, so like I said. Oh, I missed something. Oh, I guess you're just supposed to take this bishop. Oh, that makes sense, I guess. Because since we have a pawn, we don't even have a pawn majority. It's 5 against 5. They want an even endgame. The only thing is double pawns. And their king is more developed than ours. I just don't see how that makes sense in principle. So that's also wrong. Okay. A check? They want a check? Why is that correct? Oh, because then we take the bishop. Jeez Louise. I should always look for checks, right? It's a forcing moves checklist. Because then they can't attack the bishop because you can't go on the diagonal. You can only go there, and you can't attack the bishop with the king. So then we just take that. Okay. Well, a little disappointing of a run again. We only got to 27, but we'll just try it again tomorrow. We'll do better for sure. I can show you the 2 other puzzles I missed earlier today real quick. Well, there's the answer. But this one I got wrong because I tried to go here. I figured if queen takes, rook takes, and if rook takes and rook takes, then we're threatening mate here. But in fact, I missed a better move. Like, there's a principle in chess or a saying by like Lasker or somebody. If you see a good move, look for a better one, right? So rook takes rook, queen takes. You have to recapture in order to avoid losing material. And then rook here, defended by the queen, attacks this pawn, threatens mate. So that's the move. I missed that because I moved a little too fast. And this next puzzle, oh wait, that was the second. Oh, this is so this is the in-game puzzle I got wrong because I didn't calculate like I should have. Like I was saying, sometimes they can be hard. But I got the first move right, but not the third or something, or the second. Because this is obvious. You want to always prevent the king from moving closer to the center, closer to the important pawns. So move the king forward. Bishop retreats to avoid being captured. And then there's actually a huge difference which path you want to take. But apparently, moving this pawn on the right is better. I guess just because we have time and we want the king to go to the right instead of the left or something. Because opponent's pawn moves 1, but then we move ours with check. But then after the king moves, we can this other pawn on the left. Now we get to push that one. We get a queen. So queen, but it's not check. Yeah, so first we go here. They get a queen first, but we get a queen with check. So that's why we're kind of in the advantage there. And I suppose we actually get a second queen here. Then we trade off queens. Because that's the queen will... I didn't realize that till just now. Well, there it is. I had Stockfish do all the rest. But I think like this makes sense. If this is a queen... Maybe? No, that doesn't make sense actually. Because the king is still there. Maybe this would make sense. Defended by... queen check, defended by the pawns. Well, what is Stockfish? Yeah. Then you promote, then you trade off the queens. And it's a forced exchange because you're checking the king and the queen. There we go. Well, thanks so much for watching. Consider subscribing and turning on notifications to make this rapid improvement plan a consistent habit by reminding yourself to come back to watch more of my educational chess content in the future. Thanks for watching.